Let's take a look at this Extract Airways tool here that we can use for segmenting the airway of the patient in order to get its volume and to create a three-dimensional surface object out of it. Also, after the segmentation, we can see with color indication which are the most narrow parts of the airway, and we can examine the actual cross-sectional area at each point. So before we activate the tool, we can align the views a little bit when needed. So we would like to have a good view on the airway here on this sagittal view. And after that, we can activate the tool here in the toolbar. And here, just like the small dialog on the right suggests, we can click on points that follow the curvature of the airway. So we can basically draw here a spline based on which the calculation of the segmentation is done. We have here a segmentation threshold of 500 as default. We can continue with that. So let's click on Done in order to start calculating the segmentation. And now first we could take a look at this sagittal view here. So if we maximize that still a little bit, we can see here the segmented airway. And here in this information box, we can see the volume of the segmentation. So the volume of the segmented airway. And here, like I said, we can see with this color indication what are the most narrow parts of the airway. So those are displayed in red and in yellow, so in warmer colors. And then there, where the cross-sectional area of the airway is bigger, those areas are displayed in purple and blue. And this yellow dot here is automatically set to the most narrow part of the airway. And here next to that, we can see the cross-sectional area at that point. And if we now minimize the view a little bit so that we can see the other views as well, we can see here in the 3D rendered view, this axial plane activated. The axial plane we can see here as well. And the cross-sectional area is calculated based on this plane. So this axial plane is set here according to the curvature of the airway, according to the spline that we drew, so that we can see a more realistic calculation of the cross-sectional area at that point. And now we can see here also on these other views, we can see the cross-sectional area, for example here on this axial slice. And if we would like to examine the airway at other points along its length, we can just grab this yellow dot with our left mouse button down, and we can move along the spline in order to examine the cross-sectional areas also at other points of the airway. And let's then take a look at this 3D rendered view also. So let's maximize that. We can see here that we have the three-dimensional airway object here with colors. We could, for example, hide here the CBCT data using this threshold slider, and we could also deactivate the axial plane. And now we could examine also this airway alone here in this view. And we could use then, for example, this STL exporting of objects in order to export this surface model as such. And if we would like to modify the airway, so basically we could modify this existing airway still by changing the segmentation threshold. So if we maximize still this view, we can see here which all parts of the volume are taken into account in the segmentation. So if there would be some areas missing here at the border of soft tissue and the airway, so if we think that the segmentation was too small, it didn't take into account all areas here at the border, we could try increasing the segmentation threshold. And if instead the segmentation has flown to the soft tissue, so we think that it took into account a little bit too much of the volume, we could decrease the threshold then. And in order to modify the threshold for this already calculated airway, we can activate this box so that it turns green. So we can either click on the box here on the views, or we can click on the airway here in the object browser so that this box here turns green. And now we could activate the airway tool again, and we could change the threshold, and we could redo the segmentation. And if instead we would like to change the size of the airway or the position here, calculate some other part here in the air cavities, we could just calculate a new airway. So we could activate the tool again without this box being green. Or then we could, of course, delete the segmentation from here in the object browser by selecting it and by using this trash can icon here and calculate a completely new airway segmentation.